There was no time to think, only to lift the rifle and press the trigger. Heart pounding, I crouched behind what was once the shimmering glass facade of Central City's high-rise, now reduced to jagged shards and crumbling steel. Outside, the ash-spattered sky loomed like a dim reminder of what was lost, and the acrid smoke coiling through the air stung my lungs painfully with each ragged breath. Everything around me felt eerily silent in the moments between the roars of gunfire. I had never been trained for this. I would always thought soldiers were central characters in the narratives of war, not mere bystanders caught in the crossfire. Yet here I was, crouched in a shattered skyline, the last remnants of humanity grappling with an onslaught we never anticipated. "Celia, we are cut off. We need to." Dimitri's voice crackled in my ear, distant and filled with static. His anxiety seeped through the comms even as the ground beneath me trembled with the weight of artillery fire. I could hear the panic lacing his words. My heart sank. I wasn't merely a soldier to him. I was his sister, lost in this hell we called home. I tightened my grip on the weapon, my thoughts swirling in chaotic threads. I couldn't drag him into my insanity. I had to be the brave one he believed I was. "I'll find a way to flank them," I responded, each word a struggle bubbling up through my throat. "Just hold tight." The truth was, I didn't know if we could hold on any longer. The Praetorians' relentless assault had turned Central City into a tomb for those who still held hope. They were not just machines, they were monsters born from fear-advanced war constructs, programmed to eradicate humanity at all costs. If only I'd listened to estimates. If only I had heeded the futility of resistance that echoed through my sleepless nights. I edged forward, navigating through a battlefield-turned graveyard, stepping carefully over fragments of our old lives. There was a family portrait lying crushed against the rubble, the picture smudged but undeniably human. They looked happy, before the descent into madness. The thought sent an arrow of regret into my gut. I glanced back towards the meager shelter of concrete, knowing I needed to suck it up and act. Out of the corner of my eye, a flicker of movement caught my attention, a shadow darting across the open space between ruins. I pressed my body flat against the remnants of the wall, searching for any glint of light or metallic edge that might signify either a fallen ally or a lurking enemy. Suddenly, an explosion erupted in the distance, a reminder that in this war, collateral damage was guaranteed. "Celia, they're closing in." Dimitri's frantic tone broke through again, grassroots emerging in my mind. A tether to humanity in its last struggles. "You need to retreat. Now." The knot in my stomach twisted tighter as recognition blared like an alarm. I could hear them, the metallic whirs and clicks, the relentless march of the Praetorians, and it wasn't the first time I'd faced them. Just last year, a choice I had made had sent the two of us on this hellish course. I had gambling instincts against all reason, and I'd wagered too much on winning an impossible battle. "I am not leaving you," I hissed, staring into the darkest edge of the ruins, where the shadows pulsed almost breathlessly. Daring to peer, I saw them 5 Praetorian units gliding ominously across the debris-strewn pavement, their fiery red sensors pulsing with the rhythm of an ominous heartbeat. My heart raced in sync, flickers of self-preservation urging me to run, yet I knew I had to stand my ground. They were hunting me. Perhaps it was courage that put me here, or perhaps sheer, stupid defiance. I let the anger wash over me, igniting my limbs. But as I prepared to break away from my hiding spot, a trembling voice flickered in my mind, one that was achingly familiar. "What if it's déjà vu, Celia?" she asked, her words echoing like laughter amidst the chaos. "You fought this battle before in dreams, haven't you?" I had. There was a pattern to it, some sick cosmic play orchestrated beyond what I could fathom. In those dreams, I had faced Dimitri alone on a battlefield, and no matter how much I hesitated, tragedy always unveiled itself. I cursed under my breath. The weight of that moment brought me back to reality, a reminder that any move I made could cost me everything. Raising the rifle, I shifted my stance and checked my scopes, forging my resolve through memories of laughter, losses, and what it meant to still believe. Then I fired, The shot resounded, an echo of resolve fading into the cacophony of combat. But as the first Praetorian crumpled, its once meticulous frame collapsing in a heap of circuitry and metal, a tidal wave of clarity washed through me. The fight wasn't just an external conflict. It was a struggle within myself, a monstrous duality that barely kept me on the precipice of sanity. 3 more, I whispered to myself, as if playing a game with fate, to see how far I could push it. But the truth loomed larger. Each pull of the trigger felt like a decision that might destroy everything I held dear. Whatever chalice we were to drink from, we'd all have to face the bitter dregs together. The rifle kicked against my shoulder, again and again. "Celia, stay focused." Dimitri's voice broke through the haze, but even that urgency could not stem the unsettling undertow pulling at my mind. I felt it then, the seed of revelation burgeoning amidst my turmoil. The war for humanity, for survival, stemmed from decisions I had made that churned beneath the surface. They would haunt me, and even this fierce fight for the present would hold the weight of the past. But somewhere, deep in that chaos, hope flickered like a dying star. I could cling to it. I leveled my aim downrange and prepared for a final stand, one that would define the very essence of humanity's existence. Time blurred. I breathed, steadied, and embraced the storm swirling around me. In the end, I was alive, and alive meant there was still a chance for change. The smoke had begun to clear from the blood-soaked battleground, revealing the crumpled remnants of once proud structures that had risen to defy the sky. As I cautiously moved around what had remained of Central City's marketplace, the reality of the fight began to set in. This was no longer just about survival. The air was dense with people's fear, their gasps still echoing in my ears as I raced through the smoldering wreckage. I stumbled across the remnants of fallen signs artisans' hand, painted advertisements staining the asphalt with memories of better days. The kaleidoscope of colors lay dulled under layers of soot and despair, much like my heart. With every stride, I was reminded of the weight we bore, the harrowing responsibility to carry on in a world crumbling beneath us. Suddenly, a voice intruded, cutting through the thick mantle of silence. "You shouldn't be here alone, Celia." It was Mary, a teammate from my battalion, her blonde hair flecked with dirt. We had always had each other's backs during training, but the disarray of war had fractured that bond. We had all faced our demons since the onset of the invasion. I glanced at Mary, noting the marked shift in her demeanor. Her protective nature had become more urgent, more primal. "What are you doing roaming around alone when everything is falling apart?" "I'm looking for Dimitri," I replied, shaking off her concern while searching her face for reassurance. "He's still in contact, and I can't leave him." Though I willed the belief to echo like a mantra, uncertainty swirled in my heart. Mary furrowed her brow, her posture shifting from concern to obstinacy. "He's not the only one. We need to regroup with the others. There are whispers of a trap laid by the Praetorians right in our line of retreat." Anger boiled within me at the thought of retreat, but I couldn't ignore Mary's plea for reason. Roll. Doubt blueprints of the city's hidden tunnels raced through my mind, dark corridors that had served as marketing showrooms, now turned into conduits for survivors. They possessed an alleyway to safety but bore dangers of their own. I nodded, gripping my rifle with determination. "Fine. Let's gather everyone, but we will find a way to keep our paths open. We can't lose anyone else today." Try telling that to the others, Mary sighed, shaking her head, the weariness of their struggle weighing down her voice. "But I'll support whichever lunacy you throw at us. Let's go." With that, we forged through the maze of paved rubble, seeking our dwindling number of allies. As we ventured deeper into the maze of destruction, we scaled blocks of concrete and navigated through collapsed passageways. Everywhere we went, the walls whispered stories of faces hidden behind their layers of dust. A father shielding his daughter, countless lovers caught in moments before chaos swept through their lives. Each step reminded me that our fight was burdened, heavy with the collective sorrow of unimaginable loss. We finally stumbled upon a broken-down structure that had been repurposed into a makeshift barricade. Dimitri stood tall in front of our squad, fighting the unyielding shadows of dread threatening to consume him. I scanned the faces around him. Some I knew, some I'd only seen in training, their features now reflected in streaks of grime and worry. "Celia, you're alive." Dmitri rushed forward, concern etched deeply with relief as a smile broke through the remnants of despair. I thought, before he could finish, I pulled him into a tight embrace, the realization that my brother was still breathing igniting a warmth inside me. "They're strategizing an attack on the southern edge." He pulled back, the lines of tension gripping his brow. "We need to fortify our barricade." The group began discussing tactics, but beneath the din of voices, an undercurrent seemed to whisper that we were standing on the edge of a precipice. I could see the cracks of doubt splintering through our members, conflicted expressions, mingled fear with hope. We'd been emphasizing unity, but fractures were beginning to form like cracks in the glass that surrounded us. Mary stood to the side, observing with cautious intent, and nodded toward me, subtly reminding me to address our fragmented resolve. "Listen up," I called out, uncrossing my arms and resetting my posture. "We are battered, tired, and at our breaking point. But this is our home, and we fight not for ourselves but for everyone who can't." I held Dmitri's gaze, my resolve lifting him. "Everyone we've lost, none of it will mean anything if we let despair win. We'll use that anger from our losses, and we'll throw it right back at the Praetorians. We are not alone in this fight. We have each other." While my words eked out strength, they also hinted at the underlying tension among us, but it didn't pool like unwanted energy. It crackled electrically, awaiting ignition. Just before the fervor could simmer into uncertainty again, a young recruit, Mara, barely more than 16, spoke up, her voice soft but unwavering. I saw what the Praetorians had hidden in the basement of a building near the outskirts. They were transporting something." The whispers of intrigue swept through the group. "For what purpose?" Dmitri queried, his curiosity piqued. I noticed Mary's skepticism filtering into our unity, but I pushed back the instinct to doubt. "That's what I don't know, but we could either ambush them or track down those transports," she elaborated, speaking louder now as confidence seeped into her tone. With momentum building, I spoke up again, excitement pouring through the vulnerabilities I had revealed earlier. "We could send a recon team to investigate these transports. They could hold secrets about the Praetorians. If we find out what they're up to—" "That's a death wish," Mary interjected, her gaze steady and fierce. "We already have too few numbers. We can't risk losing anyone else. If we're discovered, or we could discover something invaluable," I countered, meeting her glare but still feeling the bonds of solidarity tighten around the group. As the discussions erupted anew, each voice layered upon the other, forming heated arguments intent on revealing the truth hidden beneath the surface. A truth we could leverage toward a semblance of a future. Dmitri's eyes sparkled with that familiar fervor, the fire that had always inspired me. "Celia's right," he said strongly. "If we can expose the crux of the enemy's plans, we can gain leverage against them. It's risky, but we can't afford not to act." The chatter surrounding the room began to shift. Those once torn between dogged loyalty and retreat found sinews of hope wrapping around their hearts. "I'll go," Mara stepped forward, her intensity grounding a fierce resolve. "It's my turn to contribute." "I can do this," Mary began, her voice edged with concern, but I gestured for silence again, sensing the gravity of the decision hanging on the balance. "If I take a few with me," I proposed, "we can keep the scope small. There's always strength in numbers, but if we can discreetly gather intelligence, we could pinpoint their strategy effectively." The group went quiet, weighing my words. "Fine," Mary conceded, crossing her arms tightly again, a sign of reluctant acceptance. "But you will abide by the reconnaissance protocols, and you'll have to take a team that won't risk losing anyone based on sentiment alone." Dmitri's gaze flickered my way, a hint of frustration shimmering behind it. "We have to make our biggest step count, Celia." I nodded, intent on forging a plan, holding tightly to their conviction while hoping not to shatter as we trudged further into the storm. "I'll take Mary, Jace, and May. We leave tonight. No room for doubt. But as we began to lay out the tactical approach, an eerie hum echoed through the ruins, distorting the atmosphere like a fever dream. The ground trembled, a deep vibration that resonated not just in physical matter, but deep within the marrow of my bones. The walls creaked ominously as we exchanged alarmed glances. Dimitri snapped to attention, fear flashing behind his eyes. What? What is that? Something's coming, Mary uttered, her voice trembling, the fire within her logic flickering. I could feel the collective dread gripping our group as we moved instinctively to the barricade, rifles raised in unison. Adrenaline surged, the promise of renewed battle unfurling its wings. It hit like a blinding flashlight poured in from every crevice, illuminating the shadowed corners where our despair had once taken root. With each second, tension surged like a wave. Every moment pressed us farther toward that precipice. Then I knew the Praetorians weren't merely closing in, they intended to take the heart of our resistance. And like a tide crashing against the shore, they surged forth, machines formed to obliterate any form of hope, darkness pooling at their feet. In that moment, we became one no longer fractured, but completely united by purpose, slicing through the air like seams of a rapidly unfurling tapestry. Together, we'd protect what was ours. Forging ahead into the storm, I clenched the rifle at my side. The battle for our lives was just beginning, and I knew the fight would not end here. The mysteries the night revealed sparked a new kind of courage in me. I may not have all the answers, but we would uncover them if we stood resolutely together. The battlefield was no longer just a canvas of chaos. It had transformed into a pressure cooker of desperation and defiance, as countless silhouettes of Praetorian soldiers charged from every direction around us. The urgency thickened in the air like lightning waiting to strike, and as energy coursed through my veins, I realized this confrontation was not just about us surviving. It was about reclaiming and redefining what it meant to be human in the face of overwhelming disregard for our existence. We fight or we die, I said to the tight-knit team, our breath heavy with the grit of the moment. The lights of the advancing Praetorians flickered cruelly, casting ominous shadows around us as they closed in. I drew them in close. Dimitri, Mary, Jace, and the fierce determination in May's eyes coalesced into an unbreakable bond. Stay low, aim for the joints, I shouted, directing our focus as the metallic units advanced with an unerring, chilling efficiency. Our squad executed a fluid choreography. The gleaming rounds crackled through the air, and with each shot we fired, I felt as though we were rewriting the narrative that had bound us in despair. I don't think they're breaking, Jace shouted over the din, the clash of metal against metal ringing like a dissonant symphony behind us. That's not the point, Mary snapped, defiance mingling with fear as she tossed a flashbang into the fray. It erupted in white, hot brilliance, temporarily blinding the oncoming wave. An opening, I seized the moment. Now, move. We surged forward, a combined energy drawn from every scar and sorrow we'd endured. The tides of battle raged as we engaged, the smell of ozone and gunpowder mixing with the smoke of destruction. Each pulse of our hearts beat in unity. But in that surge, I noticed a disconcerting pattern in their riptide. Their cohesion felt deliberate, almost programmed. Something more painfully calculated lay beneath the surface. Dimitri's voice cut through my racing thoughts, snapping me back to our immediate goal. Celia, over there, he pointed, indicating the path leading toward the shadows of a dilapidated building half obscured by debris. We can regroup, gather intel. That was when the question thundered through my mind. What intelligence were the Praetorians even guarding? Would we find remnants of the lives they had extinguished? I had only fragments of the bigger picture, threads loose, unraveling against the horrifying reality that had been unleashed. Falling into formation, we sprinted toward the sheltering remnants of the structure, abandoning the transient attack on the advancing units. Just outside its crumbling entrance, I spotted metallic remnants, relics of machines dismantled, stripped to their cores. Inside, The word was barely out of my mouth before the shadows around us shifted once more. "Watch out," May shouted, her instincts perfectly timed. The ground shook. A prismatic beam of light shot overhead, instantly slicing through the barricade as debris tumbled. It had come from the direction of the encroaching Praetorians, sending shockwaves through our ranks. "We can't stay," I urged, glancing at my teammates, gauging their determination, every heart, beating fiercely with that shared resolution. "If they're regrouping, we can't risk losing this moment. We need answers." Into the fractured doorway we poured, the remnants of our lives flickering around us. Daring to shake off dread, I pressed ahead. Dim light filtered through fissures in the walls, casting eerie shapes against the cluttered room full of terminals, soot, covered maps, and debris. All scattered secrets begging for discovery. We fanned out, instinctively voicing urgency as we navigated through the mess. "A search for anything that looks useful," I urged, adrenaline, honed clarity sharpening our ambition. It wasn't long before Jace called out, "Found something." His voice rose above the chaos, pulling us together. Tucked amidst scattered papers and distorted metal, he had found a hard drive, dented but functional. "It looks like they're planning something big, hollowing out the city, moving civilians and technology." I could barely breathe. "Moving them where?" "There's a schematic," he said, eyes darting across the screen. "Hold on." He swiped furiously, racing against the encroaching dread. We didn't have time. "What do you mean, hollowing out the city?" Mary pressed as she leaned in, catching glimpses that burned behind my lids. "It's like they want to create a fortress to imprison the remnants of humanity. Prisoners or soldiers," I murmured, flashes of humanity's struggle spiraling through the pain of my heart. But the implications twisted and turned more ominous than I had anticipated. Dimitri joined Jace in scrutinizing lines of codes and data, diving deeper. I felt a sudden surge of panic respond to the murmured pieces of the truth surfacing like ghosts in the ruins. "What else is there?" "Wait," Jace exclaimed, pausing. "What is this? Some sort of project designation." His brow furrowed, and we leaned in closer. He engaged the terminal further. "Project Omega, fueling the next generation of Praetorians through forced augmentation of the civilian population." A silence fell heavy over us, pierced only by the quiet buzz of machinery throughout the building. I could feel my breath hitching in my throat. "How many lives are we talking about?" I whispered, hoping against hope that the numbers wouldn't confirm my rising dread. "I don't know yet, but if they're mining civilians," Jace swallowed, wrestling with the implications. "This can't be possible. These are plans beyond anything we imagined." "They're repurposing us to fight against ourselves," Mary whispered, her voice breaking, revelation dawning upon us with stunning clarity. "It's a betrayal of everything. Our lives become forfeit to fuel their monstrous crusade." The weight was suffocating. I could feel despair clawing at my resolve, but through the haze I knew one fundamental truth. Today, we faced the core of that enemy, and it was not just machines we fought against. They aimed to strip away our humanity. "We can't let this happen," I rallied, the resolve surging through me like a supernova reclaiming its light. "If this is their plan, we need to share this intel with everyone, spread the word, and we need to act together. We take down Project Omega, whatever it means." In that moment, a collective nod united us, fear sharpened into determination. We had birthed a purpose luminous enough to pierce through our exhaustion. "No more secrets, we fight back," I announced, but urgency flooded back within me. Outside, the metallic legions were gathering force. It wouldn't be long before they overwhelmed our makeshift barricades and came for us. "We don't have time," I urged, pulling the hard drive from the terminal as we gathered in a tight circle, ready to turn back into the fray. As we exited through the shattered remains of the structure, the haunting shadow of foreboding marched behind the advancing Praetorian horde, emboldened by the truth that lay before us, yet bolstered now by the strength we had rekindled within ourselves. Steeling our collective wart, chest filled with the burden of our journey and the scattered fragments of those lost, we charged forth, ready to confront the squall that awaited us. But as we turned the corner, a sudden chill cascaded down my spine. a realization clawing at the edges of my consciousness. In our hope for unity had we unwittingly drawn closer to the heart of the storm. The air crackled ominously. Dark shadows flickered under the pulsating glow of metal, as if something far worse was waiting just beneath the surface, biding its time. Among the blaring sirens and electric dread, it became apparent. The coming confrontation would not merely be a strike at the heart of machinery, but would echo deeper truths about us and the fabric of humanity itself. Just as I caught a glimpse of the impending tide, an explosion rocked the ground beneath us, forcing me to stumble. "Celia," Dmitri shouted, gripping my shoulder tightly as we scrambled to regain our footing amidst the debris. Towering figures loomed behind the haze of smoke, a looming battalion of Praetorian units. And in my heart, an alarming truth settled. What we once considered to be an insurmountable odds had swiftly transformed into a rush of uncertain revelations. The war we had engaged was merely a prelude to what lay beyond. The urgency propelled us forward. We were ready to bear witness to the awakening of the storm. What initially felt like the unraveling of hope was becoming the very catalyst we needed, a crucible of purpose amidst calamity, forcing us into the tempest believing we could emerge whole. Together we tread forward, unraveling a truth that would amplify our resolve, a truth sown within the fibers of the light we dared display against a backdrop set to drown us all. The shadows loomed larger as we pressed forward, the weight of revelations heavy on our shoulders. With every step, urgency filled the air. I could feel the increasing pulse of our collective heartbeats, quickening in anticipation of something greater than the struggle itself. The surroundings warped into a maze, where crumbling concrete served as both linear history and backdrop to our decisions, a commentary on the decay we aimed to reverse. We barely had time to acknowledge the destruction around us as we sprinted further into the chaos. "Stay tight, we can maneuver through the debris," I shouted, willing a sense of calm to swallow the growing panic within me. The echoes of our resolve resounded. Unite, endure, reclaim. The hard drive pulsed against my chest, a digital lifeblood tethering me to the truth we would unfold. I had always known the burden that came with this knowledge. It echoed in every heartbeat, reminding me we weren't just standing witness to our world's demise. We were turning tide. "Dmitri, we're heading toward the extraction point on Wallace Street," I called, keenly aware of the darkness encroaching behind us like an unrelenting storm. Navigating the wreckage felt more taxing than ever as we neared the central sector, where the Praetorians had reinforced their barricades. Familiar landmarks faded beneath layers of ash. They had ceased to be symbols of home and turned into reminders of our impending doom. My pulse thrummed in my ears as the metallic echoes of advancing Praetorians darkened the air like a shroud. "We're almost there," Mary exhaled, glancing back, her determination steadying even as the shadows grew more pronounced. "We need to split up once we reach the intersection. This may be our only chance to divert them." "Right." I nodded tightly, though an unsettling apprehension tightened around my heart. We would have to separate, not out of fervor but necessity, and act against what fear could impose. We can't afford to get caught, but we must intrude upon their ranks in ways they never expect. The barricade ahead erupted in activity, a sprawl of Praetorians organized like a monstrous army, their sensors scanning, anticipating. Our fate flickered, perilously close to collapse. "We'll cut through the alley on the left," Jace suggested, lowering his voice. "It'll take longer, but we may outmaneuver them." He was right, but hesitation wrapped itself around my thoughts like a serpent, threatening to squeeze my resolve. As we turned into the narrow path, darkness engulfed us, and the echoes of destruction ebbed into whispers. I could hear the sounds of gunfire distantly, punctuated by mechanized voices heralding commands I wished I didn't understand. This was it. The crux of the battle lay just beyond the veil. "Stay alert," I whispered, my heart racing as we threaded our way through billowing shadows that swallowed the light. Every crack of debris felt like muffled thunder, an onset to the reckoning waiting on the other side. And then we emerged, into a shattered expanse filled with chaos, the frenetic energy swirling in every direction as Praetorian units clashed against our resistors. signs of humanity desperately holding onto existence. With the darkened sky overhead crisscrossed by flashes of blinding light, I felt it then. An electrifying surge of purpose that threatened to burst forth. Now, I commanded, propelling us deeper into the fray, shooting signals of communication between our group. We were distantly tethered, maneuvering through the chaos, heartbeats synchronizing like a primal rhythm poised for battle. Dmitri launched a flashbang. It detonated with fierce brilliance, blinding the closest machines as they slowed in their advance. "Let's capitalize on their disorientation," I cried, leading the charge as our rifles spat streams of light. They weren't prepared for our onslaught. For a moment, it felt like the collective rebellion we had forged would drive back the inexorable tide. From my peripheral, I caught a flicker of movement, a figure slipping between the chaos. Familiarity jolted through me. May, but as her figure darted toward an unsuspecting unit, a blaring alarm echoed from overhead. An alert that rippled through the ranks of machines, igniting their sensors as they zeroed in on her position. "No," I screamed, my heart clutching in response. She had been targeting a crucial center of operations, a nook where cables snaked into a cluster of consoles. If she could sever the connectivity, we could disrupt their command. Desperation kicked in, and I unleashed a volley on her behalf, pushing back the advancing units momentarily. "Cover me," I shouted as I made my way toward May, adrenaline propelling my every move. I could see her reeling from the blasts, but she pressed forward, weaving in and out of the chaos. Jace and Mary rejoined, pulling flank coverage as I reached May, ferocious determination lighting our way. "You can do this," I urged, pressing my shoulder against the thriving machinery surrounding us, sensing the heartbeat of the operations within. "Just need to overload the system," May gasped, her fingers dancing over the controls, the wind carrying remnants of despair. With a flick of her wrist, sparks erupted as her presence ignited a larger fire. "All right," I nodded, trying to block the waves of pressure that filtered past us in either direction, the battle still raging ferociously. "We're gaining traction here. Once you do this, we need to rally everyone and make a move, a distraction or a retreat," she shot back, uncertainty clouding her focus. "Both. We go in hard, create enough chaos to buy time," I interjected, locking my gaze on her resolutely. "It's time we turn the tide." With renewed vigor, she pressed down, the system sparking furiously. "Visual patterns, they're recalibrating," May exclaimed, her brow furrowing in concentration as the terminals lit up like wildfire. Then, with a cacophonous thrum, the machinery surged to life, alarms blaring, red lights flashing in every direction. "No, no, no." Her urgency heightened as the system spiraled out of control. "Pick them off," I shouted, instinctively firing towards the approaching lines of metal, determined to safeguard our only chance of disruption. As confusion set in amongst the Praetorian ranks, they began firing haphazardly, their focus shifting as their networks went haywire. "It's working." Turning to Mary, I pressed urgently. "We need to form ranks, cover May while she stabilizes." Explosions rang around us, metallic screeches rising into chaos that drowned out all but instinct. We were a roiling sea of determination heading into the unknown, pushing against the tide, and the equipment continued to flicker erratically. "Almost got it," May shouted, but the Praetorians were quickening their response, their systems regaining strength amidst the chaos. They began organizing, a deeper infernal dance returning that felt calculated and brutal. Suddenly, a loud explosion ripped through the air, and the ground quaked beneath our feet, creating shockwaves that knocked us off balance and sent us sprawling. "Stay together," I shouted, but before I could react, a dense cloud enveloped us, blinding, choking with thick smoke. I clawed my way through panic, grasping for any semblance of clarity amidst the turmoil. "Get up," I yelled, frantically searching for my team. "We can't leave her." "Celia, I'm here." Dimitri's voice reached me, threading through the chaos. "May's pinned down. We need to get her out. Hold on over here." Mary's voice rang out, guiding me. We weaved toward May, still tethered to her machine. The howling winds of chaos twisted every direction. Hunger for survival stoked our resolve. With Jace and Dimitri flanking our sides, we dove through the debris. But as we closed in on May, a dark figure silhouetted at her back became a reality we could no longer deny. One of the Praetorian commanders stood towering above her, its metallic form glimmering ominously, a foreboding testament to our adversary's intent. I fired instinctively, anxiety fueling every shot, and though it staggered momentarily, the commander recovered, its attention honed on us with chilling precision. "Disperse!" I shouted, adrenaline coiling tighter as the commander entrenched into battle mode, launching retaliatory fire. "Acelia!" Dimitri roared, and in that singular moment, time slowed. The commander locked onto us, the sensors flaring a crimson glow that danced dangerously over the battlefield. Then, May's voice cut through the haze, a piercing bell of defiance. "I have to finish this," she cried, ignoring the chaos swirling around us. She was a beacon, stepping forward, retaking control amidst the storm. My heart pounded as the infrastructure behind her erupted in wild sparks again. "No, May, get back," I urged, but through my pleas she stood resolute at the epicenter of the chaos. "Just a moment longer," she insisted, fingertips dancing chaotically against the thrumming controls. And then, in that paradoxical heartbeat, the arena roared with sound, explosions popping all around, cascading as if the very universe were tearing itself apart. The pattern erupted, a wave of electromagnetic energy flooding through the vents and conduits she had coaxed alive, forcing the machinery into disarray. "They can't compensate for this," she shouted, but I could see the shadows encroaching, determined to snuff out this light. "We will not leave you," I yelled back, darting toward her as the commander's engines whirred angrily, locking onto her defenseless form. In one sudden burst of furious double beats, a blast of energy shot forth from May's creation, destabilizing every Praetorian within the blast radius in an incandescent glow of blue. And just like that, we had our opening. "Fire!" I screamed, and all at once, we unleashed every ounce of our firepower, a united front against the oncoming threat. As the Brilliance laid waste to their ranks, I saw the faint shimmer of recognition in May's eyes. "Go, now," she screamed again, gesturing aggressively as flames engulfed the perimeter. We pushed through the pandemonium, the tide shifting for the first time in what felt like ages, each of us breaking through to the other side. "To the extraction point," Dimitri urged, a fierce protectiveness igniting within him, clearly aware of the cost of our latest gambit. But, as we raced, fear prickled along my spine, a deep-rooted dread that perhaps losing her in that moment would shatter something within me that I couldn't afford to lose. "Tell me you're coming," I shouted over the cacophony, but I felt it, the building pressure of the place we had claimed was about to collapse, and a wave of heat surged behind us, threatening to consume everything. "Just go," May yelled, adrenaline propelling her efforts as she struggled against the chaos, desperately completing her work as the systems sparkled chaotically and finally unleashed a system of cascading explosions to cover our retreat. "We have to go." Mary battled against the darkness, pulling me fiercely toward the framing exit as fiery light illuminated the remnants of our struggle. But as we reached the exit, I turned back for one last glimpse, hoping it wouldn't haunt my thoughts for eternity. "May," I yelled, but the weight of fate pressed against my chest, suffocating. Even as I ran, flame and debris surged forth like wild animals freed to wreak havoc, and the commander tumbled amid the chaos, engulfed in bursts of light, signaling both destruction and rebirth. "Keep running," Jace plunged forward, urging the momentum onward as we forged toward that last flicker of hope. We could hear the crackling of the ground behind us, the howls of machines tearing themselves apart. Yet within the converging light, a bittersweet truth blossomed in my heart. We would pick up the pieces of our shattered lives, only to return and reclaim her, one day at a time. We burst free of the chaos into the open street, the moon shining down like a guardian's embrace around us, igniting the promise of possibility among the ashes. "Keep moving," Dmitri directed as we collapsed into an alley, rapidly seeking refuge from the inferno we had left behind. Alight with fervor, loaded with the embers of uncertainty transformed into familiar warmth. Even as fate felt fickle, I knew I would never see May as just a part of that blazing horizon. She would shine through even the darkest nights, illuminating a path forward. Leaving that battlefield behind, our bodies soaked in exhaustion, but our spirits ignited, united by truths we shared. The understanding that it was our humanity, our bonds that would light the way against the dark tide, and there would always be a pulse of hope guiding us home. We were neither ghosts nor remnants, just sentinels charged to reclaim our world. As dawn broke across the horizon, fragile and golden, it cast a warm glow over the ruins of Central City, illuminating the remnants of our shattered world. I allowed the light to fill my lungs, breathing deeply to push back the lingering tendrils of despair, while the sounds of distant gunfire still echoed relentlessly in the background. We had escaped the immediate threat, but the battle was far from over, and I could feel the weight of relinquished control pressing against my chest like a shackle. Dmitri had established a makeshift camp on the lower levels of what remained of an old community center, a teetering structure pockmarked with memories and scars left by war. I sat on the rubble, cradling the hard drive May had entrusted to me. It was a lifeline laden with secrets we had yet to unlock. My heart lay heavy with the burden of unanswered questions, each one gnawing at the edges of my resolve. Celia. Dmitri's voice cut through my thoughts. I lifted my gaze, finding him standing over me, shadows dancing across his determined visage. What's our next move? The question lingered in the air, reshaping itself from doubt into opportunity. We need to analyze the data we retrieved. If May's overload disrupted their operations, we could exploit that chaos to our advantage. I felt the flicker of hope ignite within me, a small ember, fragile but capable of setting forth a blaze in our struggle against an enemy hell, bent on our destruction. Dmitri nodded, eyes narrowing with focus. He drew out his portable scanner, a salvaged piece of tech that still held some life within its circuits. Let's see what information we can extract from this. As he plugged the drive into the device, we both leaned forward, anticipation drumming beneath our skin. The device hummed to life, displaying lines of code flickering across the screen. My heartbeat quickened with every pulse from the scanner, a symphony of tension filling the air as the grappling dance of data unfolded before us. "Come on," I murmured, praying for a thread of familiarity amidst the chaos we had captured. Dmitri's fingers flew over the scanner, deciphering the code cascading across the screen. Silence stretched between us, enveloped in an urgency that felt both exhilarating and ominous. As the information began to unravel on the display, I leaned closer. "The Project Omega augmentation protocols," he murmured, tracing a particular line with his finger. "They're working on creating hybrid soldiers." Expected horror washed over me in waves. We suspected as much. You know, Celia, this goes deeper than just augmentation. He frowned, his brow furrowing, processing the implications that slalom through his mind. They're mapping neural pathways and integrating them with combat technology. The civilians they're capturing, it's all part of their new plan, combining them with these machines. The truth felt like a punch to the gut, sinking deep into the abyss of despair we had fought so hard to avoid. Transforming humans into weapons, I whispered, the weight of our reality settling heavily around us, an unbearable shroud testing the limits of our endurance. As the information continued to flow, something flickered in the corner of my vision, a line hidden in the shadows of the code. "Wait, what's this?" I pointed at the screen, my eyes narrowing as understanding crept in. "It looks like there's a sequence to their operations. If we can input a disruption, maybe we could turn their own system against them." Dmitri leaned closer, barely contained excitement lighting up his features. "If we time an attack during their next supply run, we could create chaos within their ranks. It could buy us the time we desperately need to rescue any survivors and dismantle their operations." The storm of desperation brewed inside me, and courage clutched at my throat. We had become more than just survivors. We were agents of change, determined to fight back against the tide of annihilation threatening to consume our future. We'll need everyone on this. The risk is immense, but we can't let fear hinder our fight, I said, summoning every ounce of strength I possessed to buoy my resolve. With a fiery glint in his eyes, Dmitri nodded. Then let's call them together. This is our chance. We wasted no time gathering our small band of survivors. I felt the tension spike in the air. Questions, doubts, and fears coursed like shadows through the crowd as we shared the daunting truth that lay before us. Each face reflected the flames of determination we all shared, igniting that flickering ember of hope I had so desperately clung to. Standing at the center, I took a deep breath, steadying myself against the impending call to action. This is not just about survival anymore, it's about reclaiming our lives, our humanity. Project Omega seeks to enslave those who remain. They're not just machines, they're a twisted reflection of what we fight to protect. As I spoke, I saw sparks catch behind my comrades' struggles, resilience tightening their stance. We're going to disrupt the Praetorian supply run and compromise their infrastructure, I continued. This is our opportunity to exploit the chaos May created. We form a trap, one embedded with our hope and our anger. As murmurs rippled through the assembled group, Mary stepped forward, hands clasped tight against her chest, imploring us with fierce intensity. You know what we risk. But if we succeed, if we manage to fracture their forces, we can cast aside the cloak of chains they've draped over us. We must fight in unison to reclaim what is ours. The energy surged through us, and the air felt electric with possibility, anticipation, and impending resolve. One by one, voices rose in agreement. A unified chorus of fierce beliefs shimmering like an ethereal tapestry intertwining across our collective determination. We fight, Jace shouted, and the crowd erupted in affirmations. Desperate words turned battle cries. Amidst the thrum of rising hope and adrenaline, we flipped the script from fear to resolve. Our loyalty to one another lit the way forward. Together, we began to outline the plan, pooling our skills to navigate the labyrinth of ashes that had remained of our past. Under the cover of darkness, we would divide into teams. Some would focus on sabotaging the supply convoys, while others would scout the pathways and reconnaissance. I felt the steel coil of determination grasp my chest, coursing through my veins as we prepared to split into our designated groups, ready to reclaim our lives from the brink of oblivion. As we finalized preparations, my heart quickened, racing against the clock. You remember, speed and communication are our greatest assets. We're relying on each other. We will not falter. The weight of responsibility pressed against me, but I embraced it willingly. This time, every action turned the tide in our favor, and for once, we had the upper hand. Once the sun dipped low, we struck quiet, methodical, launching ourselves into the shadows that concealed our purpose. I led the charge with Mary by my side, navigating the labyrinthine alleys and remnants of what had once been home. Ahead of us, the Praetorian convoy loomed like a specter, dark and imposing. Get ready, I whispered as our pulse united, the heartbeat of resistance thrumming in unison. On my mark, Mary affirmed, the tension thickening in the air around us. With bated breath, we counted down silently, anticipating the throes of chaos twining with liberation. 3, 2, 1, now, and then we surged forth, as if propelled by a tide of unyielding fury. The night erupted gunfire, shouts, the sounds of machines clashing with ragged cries and engines roaring. We exploded into action like stars colliding, relying on instincts honed by desperation and hope. And now, I shouted, pushing the team to advance, the thrill of adrenaline coursing through our backs as we struck against the encroaching dark. As chaos unfolded in surging waves, I could see the lines of resistance, merging those who had once fought only for survival, now thrusting themselves into the throes of revolution. Each shot we fired felt like a spell breaking against oppression, each fallen Praetorian a testament to our burgeoning defiance. We fought, not only for our lives but for May's sacrifice, for the shattered remnants of humanity, and for the flickering hope that refused to dim amidst despair. But then, far too soon, the tide began to shift. I felt it in the tightening hold of anxiety as self-preservation flared brightly among us. The Praetorian units began to adapt, redirecting their fire with frightening composure, their programming recalibrating to counter our chaos. We needed to buy time. Reinforcements, shouted Mary as our team pressed deeper into the fray. The sound of heavy machinery advancing grew louder, and a new wave of dread churned in my gut, mingling with unwavering resolve. We need to cut their comms. We cannot afford to let them send for aid. Follow me, I shouted amid the fray, dodging debris and bodies alike as we maneuvered through their ranks. Every moment stretched thin, filled to the brim with purpose, fueled by the clarity of our mission and the terror of the alternative. As we reached a cluster of their communication devices, gleaming screens and looping signals, I tore at the bindings, urging the others to follow suit. This is more than likely our only chance. If we sever their link, there's no going back. I ripped cables from the walls, our hands working in frantic unity while shouts of battle echoed all around us. A chorus of defiance against encroaching darkness that threatened to isolate us again. Celia, Dmitri cried, the desperate urgency embedded in his voice. We need to get out of here. Then it happened. The ground trembled violently, and I stumbled. I grasped for balance, my heart racing as a bone. Rattling explosion rocked behind us. The convoy had sparked into a hellfire of metal, illuminating the dark eerily, casting shadows of terror and liberation all at once. Move, I shouted hoarsely, adrenaline coursing through my veins. We raced back toward our exit route, the air thick with smoke and chaos as we fled, a tapestry of sound entwined with freedom's fraught reality, and then I saw her. May emerged from the tumult, a radiant beacon amidst the chaos. She was alive, undeterred by the surge of turmoil that enveloped us. The sight ignited a flame deep inside, a light wreathed in the promise of resilience. Celia, she called through the din, and with tears of relief springing to my eyes, I dashed forward to meet her halfway, as if to protect the embers of our hope that lingered still. May, I hugged her tightly, cherishing her heartbeat against mine. The battle roiling around us swirled like whispers, yet in that moment we stood together, tethered by defiance and fueled by spirit. You made it. Her breath was warm against my ear, filled with determination. We still have work to do. We won't let this chaos fade into silence, not now. With every second that passed, the roar of the machinery grew closer, but a different kind of energy emerged within me. A determination to push against the tide of fate. As we regrouped, disentangling ourselves from the fray, a renewed understanding warmed our hearts. We would become the architects of our own revival, wielding our pain as a weapon against the very forces that tried to extinguish our flame. The battle might rage on, but we would forge our path, one fueled by love, loss, and an unwavering belief in a brighter future awaiting just beyond the shadows. United in purpose, we plunged deeper into the heart of our revolution, every heartbeat pounding a rhythm that resonated beyond despair, a song for freedom playing amidst the wreckage of everything we once knew. Together, we would rise again not merely as survivors, but as sentinels of hope, reclaiming our world at long last. As the echoes of conflicts faded into the burgeoning dawn, a weight lifted from our hearts, a mixture of uncertainty and thumping hope coursing through the veins of our makeshift resistance. The remnants of Central City sprawled around us, a testament to what we had endured and a promise of what lay ahead. Each heartbeat sent tremors of resolve through our ragtag coalition, and I felt the flickers of optimism transform into a steady flame, propelling our movement forward. Gather everyone, I ordered, a fierce determination flooding through me as I knelt to scour our surroundings for allies emerging from the shadows. We need to consolidate what we've learned. This isn't just a battle, it's our revolution. I glanced at Dmitri, who nodded, a fire igniting in his eyes. He stepped forward as I turned, rallying those still disoriented by the chaos around us. We've faced adversaries that threatened to dismantle our very existence, yet here we are, bound together by the strength of survival, he declared, capturing the attention of our weary band. Amidst injuries and exhaustion, faces lifted with new purpose, the fires of defiance sparking in our ranks once again. What we've uncovered about Project Omega is just the tip, he continued. With those machines, they thrive not just on violence, but on the subjugation of humanity itself. They need to feed on fear, uncertainty, and chaos. This is our chance to counter them. As his words sank in, I could see our allies straightening, hope weaving its way into the fabric of despair. It's no longer just about surviving this battle, I echoed, tightening my grip on the hard drive as if it were the last thread keeping our world together. We hold the knowledge to disrupt their operations, sabotage their plans, and dismantle their infrastructure. Today, we turn the tide. I'm in. Mara stepped forward, the hardened resolve written in every line of her expression. We've seen enough death. We reclaim what's ours. The chorus echoed around her, pieces of determination building toward a resurgence of hope that was palpable. We need a plan, I said, focusing the energy flickering around us. Our next steps are vital. We should reach out to survivors, those in hiding, those still trapped in the city's outskirts, and the ones who might lend a hand. If they know we exist and that we're still fighting, we can rally their strength behind us. What about the power sources? Jace interjected. That's what Project Omega is building. If we can disrupt their logistics, we could force them to rethink their strategy. His eyes glinted with fierce anticipation. Exactly, I smiled, sensing momentum shifting. Each power relay we take down can weaken their grid, stalling their efforts to produce augmented soldiers. Then we need to hit them where they least expect it, Mary asserted, her analytical mind shifting gears. They won't be prepared for such a concerted assault. We can divide our resources. Dimitri leaned in, eyes narrowed. Let's gather our recon teams for targets. The closest power facilities should be our first priority. They're most susceptible to sabotage. As we delved deeper into our plan, intricate webs of possibilities unfolded, each suggestion striking beams of light through the darkness. Everyone was fueled by an urgency pulsing alive like an unrelenting heartbeat, a rush of collective energy refusing to be snuffed out. We systematically paired ourselves into squads, drawing upon the strengths we'd honed under duress. I felt anticipation build within me, a mix of excitement and trepidation. We were no longer alone. We became unified in purpose, determined to carve our place within the ruins of our world. Once ready, we split into teams, each tasked with the dual purpose of gathering intelligence and executing our first wave of sabotage to wrench control from their metallic grasp. The air felt electric as I traded glances with Dimitri before we partook in our assigned duties. I silently poured everything I held into this moment, knowing that we stood on the precipice of something monumental. Our first meeting point lay beneath the flickering neon glow of the city's remnants, where shadows danced against crumbling structures marred by life yet to be reclaimed. As I moved through the chaos, the dimness deepened, cloaking our very essence with pooled power. The time had come. We could only hope the plans conjured could stand up to the whirlwind we faced. Separating once again, my heart thundered in my chest, resonating along the ground beneath. We act swiftly, I reminded my group, now charged with the fierce flame of purpose. Once we reach the power facilities, we dig deep and ensure every ounce of what they've built crumbles like ash. Keep your eyes peeled for anything unusual and remember, we're not just fighting to survive. We're fighting for our future. As we infiltrated the first facility, caution marked our movements. Hushed whispers filled the dark, wiry spaces between our intentions and the enemies lurking in the darkened corners. The facility buzzed with frenetic energy, glowing conduits snaking through the exposed infrastructure like veins pulsating beneath taut skin. Jace, check the upper levels, I instructed, heart racing. You can scout for any enemies or surveillance systems. It was just the nudge he needed as he darted away, the thrill of adrenaline kicking into high gear. Mary and I weaved through the equipment below, retracing the circuits with a practiced eye, while reams of plans cascaded through my mind, flaring life into shadows. It rendered the space alive, each click of machinery resonating among us, a dangerous oracle threatening to unveil our presence. The sound of echoes rattled in the facility as alarms began blaring, ripping away the illusion of stealth. "Celia," Mary shouted over the noise, "we've got company. We need to retreat." A panic clawed within, but I gritted my teeth, forcing myself to act. "Grab what you can," I cried, the urgency slicing through our resolve, fear emanating from the shadows closing in on us. Jace's breathless voice flared through the comms. "I've found some tech. It leads straight to a control panel. Get to it. We'll cover you," I exclaimed, adrenaline surging as I turned, ready to counter the oncoming wave. Behind me, I could see Mary preparing her weapons, resolve hardening her gaze. The air pulsed with urgency as we took positions near the threshold, awaiting the encroaching forces. Just as the first Praetorian stormed through the door, we unleashed our fury. Every shot reverberated with intent, the warmth of our combined resolve crackling in the air around us, creating a shield of defiance. I felt embers dancing through my veins, shimmering with the strength of all those we had lost. "Focus their fire on the left," I shouted, adjusting my aim to maintain that tight defensive network. "We're not going down without a fight." We battled fiercely, pushing back the mechanical tied inch by inch, each victory interlaced with the threads of our humanity. But as the skirmish unfolded, I realized that this moment brought something deeper. It realized a yearning to stand above despair, to crush it under our feet and rise together. "Celia," Jace's voice flickered through the chaos as he intercepted energy static over the din of battle. "I've got the control system. The entire grid, they're circulating power and conversing through here." A flash of exhilaration ignited within me. The energy source connects to all the networks scattered across Central City. If we can disrupt this, we can put a dent in their operations, Mary asserted, urgency threading through her words like lightning. "Hurry. Input the commands," I urged, fighting against the fluid waves of Praetorian units gathering like furious shadows. "You must copy the coefficients from the hard drive." Jace nodded resolutely, working swiftly on the control panel, fingers dancing across the console as I created a shield against the incoming ambush of overwhelming noise. The room pulsed with the electric beats of chaos as I raised my weapon, defending our front line. The steady crack of gunfire mingled with the whir of the machines, and amidst it all, I felt the tether, the intertwining connections that bound us together, giving life to a vision brighter than we had ever known. "For those we lost," I whispered, longing for the weight of all we had sacrificed to bear witness to the culmination of this moment. With every ounce of strength, we shattered the bindings shackling those around us, pushing, clawing, fighting to liberate every corner of our fading world. "Just a moment longer," Jace shouted, frantically tapping commands into the console. The air crackled around us, the very energy weaving in twisted seams of desperation. "Almost got it. I'm initiating the sequence now." With a fierce roar, our combined wills surged forth, knowledge cascading through the wires as I surged against the wall of resistance. "Hold your ground," I called out, adrenaline racing through my veins as I gritted my teeth against the surging tide. Then it happened. An explosion of energy rippled through the facility, a harmonious glow bursting forth, igniting everything around us. The Praetorian units near the controls shattered like glass, caught in their own storm of electromagnetic chaos. "And now, run," Mary shouted, and before we knew it, we barreled toward the exit, racing against the whirlwinds of impending success. The room erupted behind us in a cacophony, chaos spiral dancing into celebration. Dmitri reached us at the door, breathless, eyes wide with triumph. "You did it," he shouted, the weight of the world lifting momentarily. But as we stormed out into the dawn, the shadows ahead began to eclipse the vibrance of our triumph. Caution flooded my veins anew. "We aren't safe yet," I warned. In the distance, before us rose a dark mass of Praetorian units, their formations looming ominously on the horizon. The very shadows we had hoped to overcome bore down upon us once again. Yet amongst those shadows shimmered the light we had ignited within ourselves, a fierce determination to reclaim not just our city, but our very identities, ambitions, and futures. Together, I shouted, my voice rising within the chaos, wrapping around the remnants of our weary strength. We march for freedom, hand in hand, united against darkness. We charged into the fray, the weight of every sacrifice woven into our spirits, weaving together the essence of our revolution, standing as the vanguard for what lay ahead. The stakes surged higher as we approached the depths of their operations, and as we clicked shoulder to shoulder, I could feel it burgeoning beneath our feet, the pulse of a brighter future rumbling, steady now as we marched into our fate, ready for the final conflict that awaited. This was not merely a fight, it was a symphony, a turbulent blend of light and shadow, and we were bound together, determined to reignite the essence of humanity against the encroaching night. Each step forward ignited embers of hope. Together, we would rewrite the future. Together, we would transcend. The tension in the air was electric as we faced down the dark mass of Praetorian units advancing toward us, their metallic bodies reflecting the faint rays of dawn. Every moment felt like it whispered of destiny, coiling tight around my heart. A reminder that we were not merely surviving, we were fighting to reclaim our home, our lives, our very humanity. Stay close, I shouted over the cacophony of whirring engines and shouting squad leaders. We had caught their attention. They were shifting into formation, methods of relentless precision and cold calculation taking over their programming. Prioritize the leader units, they're coordinating the attack. Dmitri nodded beside me, sweat beading on his brow in defiance of the morning chill. His gaze was steady, and I could see the weight of determination etched into the very lines of his face. With a deep breath, I steadied myself, gripping the rifle in my hands tighter as I drew in the courage surging through my veins. We had come too far, endured too much to back down now. As the first Praetorian unit broke from the front line, a blinding beam of light shot forward, a harbinger of devastation. The air shimmered, heavy with the power of their weapons, and I barely had time to react. Incoming, I shouted, hurling myself to the side just as the energy beam lanced through the space I had occupied only an instant before. The blast sent waves of energy rippling against the crumbling walls around us. Rocks and debris exploded outward, showering us in a cascade of shrapnel as we ducked and dove for cover. "Get down," Mary called out, using her rifle as a shield against the splintering rubble. We scrambled across the shattered remnants of our home, eyes sharp and alert, hearts pounding in tandem with our breaths. Each movement was crucial, the weight of our mission pressing us forward, deeper into the crosshairs as we became the living embodiment of defiance. We could not falter. And now, I shouted, raising my rifle to fire along our flank, directing our squad's retaliatory fire. "Push them back. We need to create a path to the command node." There was no hesitation in our ranged assault. We were propelled by an urgency that broke free from the chains of fear. My thoughts honed in on one single truth. We weren't just fighting the Praetorians. We were reclaiming our lives from the shadows that threatened to consume them. The din of battle raged on, transforming the landscape around us into a chaotic symphony of gunfire, screams, and metallic whirs, the sheer cacophony fueling our ardent resolve. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins, each heartbeat echoing the weight of those we had lost, their spirits mingling with our own, igniting our courage. "Cover me," Dmitri called as he pushed ahead, his rifle raised and sweeping across our combat zone, eyes scanning for their leader units, those commands threatening to rally the Praetorian ranks. I could feel the ground tremble beneath us, a constant reminder of the lives that hung in the balance. We surged forward, every advance met with the primal rage of resistance. Each burst of energy from our rifles illuminated the shadows dancing around us, sending fragments of metal and plastic erupting into the opened air. In that moment, I felt the unyielding spirit of teamwork coalesce within us. We formed a fighting unit, layered with intention and linked by our experiences, Got one, Jace yelled, his voice cutting through the thunder of conflict. They're falling back. The cheering roars of triumph ricocheted through our ranks, but I knew we had a long way to go. This isn't over, I reminded everyone, swallowing the urge to let hope take root before the battle was truly won. Our enemies were relentless, and they would adapt. As if sensing the shift in momentum, the remaining Praetorian commanders loomed forward, their red sensors pulsating ominously. "Here they come," Mary exclaimed, matching my gaze, a firestorm igniting within her. We split up, navigating the space, ducking behind cover, using Predator's reflexes honed by war as our ally. We needed to maintain pressure on them and isolate their command. With a new wave of determination, I sprinted to flank another approaching unit, the clang of their steps ringing clear. My heart raced in syncopation with the rhythm of the battlefield, and I could almost see the lines of fate intertwining with our attempts to rewrite the end of our story. A thundering explosion erupted nearby, showering us with dust and debris as I steadied my aim. "And now?" I howled, unleashing a barrage of firepower. Praetorian vehicles crumpled under our ferocity, their systems faltering amidst the chaos we had orchestrated. But as we surged forward, a low hum unfurled through the air. A surge of dread rolled over me. "What's happening?" I shouted as the ground beneath us vibrated violently. It was a sound I recognized too well, a precursor to an insidious and deadly force. "Retreat! Get back!" Dmitri shouted, instinctively pulling me back as the earth trembling became a thunderous roar. I turned just in time to see the holodeck rays from behind the advancing line. A massive wave of energy shimmered along its exterior as its terrifying shape began to take form. "Hold steady, we'll find a way," I shouted over the din, grounding myself amid sheer panic through sheer force of will. "Stick together!" The hulking mass surged forward, its laser systems automating toward us, seeking to wipe away our very existence. The command unit was charged with energy, swirling blue, hued light cascading through the air to feed back against the power grid we just disrupted. "We've got to disable it," Mary shouted, determination glaring through her voice. "It's the key to ending this fight." Her words echoed through my mind. I understood that if we could cut the lifeblood from this monstrosity, we could shatter their hold and take back mankind's standing in this world. "All we have to do is hold them off," I roared, features contorting as I gathered what courage remained, pushing past fatigue. "Let's take them down." With raw determination burning bright within us, we rallied together, resolutely defining our hearts and launch our shared fury toward the robotic monster. I took aim at the rapidly moving bulk, the adrenaline of rebellion coursing through me as I detached from doubt. Quick but calculated, we unleashed a hailstorm of fire targeting critical points, seeking to weaken their exterior systems. "Get those cables," I shouted, beckoning Jace, whose eyes shone with fervor. "Take out the supply line," he nodded fiercely, dashing toward the exposed conduits with a vengeance edging his resolve. He ducked and dove, ripping apart the access ports with ruthless efficiency as shots rang overhead. Just as I thought relief might creep in, the energy shift grew heavy once more. A deep hum reverberated against my chest, sending shivers down my spine. "It's stabilizing," I realized, urgency rushing through me as one of the Praetorian commanders glided nearer, bearing down with malicious intent. "Dmitri, Mary, cover him," I shouted as Jace continued to work. Determination trained deep in his muscles. The power pulsed brighter, the flashes dazzling in my periphery as seconds passed with relentless speed. We needed to eliminate the threat imposing upon us before it overwhelmed our brother. Beneath the kaleidoscope of chaos, something ignited inside me, a call to arms sculpted by rage and unwillingness to yield. "We will not give in, fight." I lifted my rifle, holding fast against the swell of desperation, propelling us forward to reclaim that which had been taken. With our combined forces in sync, I knew I had to wield our shared spirit into battle, forging ahead as our defenses gathered strength. Bursts of energy rippled above us, illuminating the darkness even amid crushing intensity. The hum of battle blended into an anthem of resilience, pushing us further, each heartbeat clawing toward liberation. "Celia, the energy flow is stabilizing," Mary shouted, breaking through the kaleidoscope of sound. We need to overload it. My heart raced as the realization crystallized. There was a fine line between the energy surging within this formidable monstrosity and the plans we had spun. We had a chance to act.
Jace, we'll follow your lead. Trigger a reversal. Now. I channeled each thought into the shared pulse coursing through us, as we poured our intentions toward heaving this behemoth into oblivion. Jace launched into action, fingers flying across the control panel as he diverted deflections and shifted priorities back toward the rift. The hum of the systems began to shift. The vibrations thrummed with a furious intensity as chaos crowded within. We held the line, bolts of energy weaving together into a maelstrom. A force larger than us, yet hopeful, as we charged back toward the heart of the conflict, propelled by the fire we had kindled. Dimitri and Mary pressed on beside me, standing resolute against the oncoming wave, while Jace continued to navigate the chaos. The seconds stretched eternally, each passing heartbeat pulsing against the relentless surge. Every ounce of energy poured into altering the tide of fate. And then, just as the chaos crescendoed, everything shattered into chaos. A blinding light emerged from Jace's terminal, the detectors sizzling with energy. "I'm done," he yelled triumphantly, and as he flipped the final switch, the ensuing explosion lit the entire facility ablaze with brilliant colors. "Run, move," I screamed. Distant echoes rolled back amidst the roar of thundering destruction, and the energy burst forth as a storm released into the universe. We were swept away in its wake, propelled forward as freedom surged like a phoenix rising anew. Just before the explosion erupted behind me, I turned one last time to glimpse the aftermath of our struggle. A fiery radiance consuming the oppressive structures of bygone desolation. There were no words, no emotions sprang forth as I ran. We burst through the clearance, gasping for air even as destruction seeped into our bones. We would not look back, not now. Suddenly, the dawn breaking ahead shimmered with hope, beckoning us into the light. Hand in hand, we had fought against impossible odds, and now we would embrace every flicker of life that awaited us on the other side. The battle raged on, challenges still ahead. But together, we had become a force deeper than ourselves, restored by memories of losses endured and renewed beliefs in victory regained. Every fractured piece of our story coalesced into a singular purpose. We were not shadows, nor would we remain hidden forever. We were warriors united, relentless, and free to reclaim what was justly ours. The path ahead would be fraught with danger, but we would strive to overcome it, together, challenged through fire and born anew by the strengths we bore. The fight against the metallic menace was far from over. We would dismantle their hold, strike down the heart of Project Omega, and ultimately reclaim not just our lives, but the very essence of humanity itself. Together we would rise again. Embracing what lay ahead, we carved a path into the dawn. The air was thick with smoke and the remnants of what was once a bustling market. The sun barely pierced the overcast sky, casting a muted gray hue over Central City's crumbling landscape. Fractured structures loomed like sentinels, testaments to the fierce battle we had fought, and the many more that awaited us. As we emerged from the embers of destruction, a renewed sense of purpose coursed through my veins. The fight against the Praetorians was not just a battle for survival. It was a reclamation of our humanity, an assertion of defiance against an unyielding force seeking to define our destiny. "Celia, we need to get to the rendezvous point," Dimitri said, his voice cutting through my reverie. He was breathing heavily, sweat glistening on his forehead, but there was a fire in his eyes that mirrored my own. "We can't afford to lose any of our momentum." I nodded, urgency gripping my heart like an iron fist. "Well, let's move," I replied, glancing back to ensure that our ragtag team was keeping pace. We were a tapestry woven from loss and hope, stitched together by shared struggles and unyielding resolve. As we made our way through the battered cityscape, I felt the pulse of determination thrumming in my chest. Our last battle against the Praetorians had shifted something within us. It felt like the weight of despair had lifted just a fraction, revealing a glimmer of the future we might yet grasp. There was no time for fear or doubt.
We were embarking on a mission to strike at the very heart of Project Omega, the brood from which their mechanized horrors sprung forth. The rendezvous point lay at the basin, an expansive underground facility built for emergencies. It had once served as a control center, a nerve center for the city, before the Praetorians turned it into a fortress. Yet now, it was no longer shrouded in darkness. We were prepared to reclaim it, a beacon of resistance newly ignited. As we neared the entrance, the vibrations of urgency cascaded through the ground, guiding us even as the horizon flickered with the remnants of explosions. "We're almost there," I called to my team, adrenaline pulsing through my veins. Yet, amidst the rising anticipation, I sensed a shift, an undercurrent of unease wafting through the air. Celia, Mary's panicked voice broke through my concentration. "The scanners are picking up multiple signals. Lots of Praetorian activity inside." My heart sank. "How many?" "Too many to count," she replied, her voice trembling as she adjusted the tracker. "It looks like they're reinforcing. They must be aware we're coming. We need to act fast," I snapped, gathering my resolve. "If they fortify the basin, it'll be over before we even enter." I knew our chances would dwindle if we hesitated. "Then let's create a diversion," Dmitri suggested, his eyes narrowing with focus. "Draw them out, split their forces. We'll use the element of surprise." "Agreed," I said. I could feel the fiery resolve igniting within the hearts of my allies, and it filled me with purpose. We won't let them turn this city into their prison. We will reclaim our home. We finalized our roles and bounded ahead, knowing our lives depended on each of us executing our tasks to perfection. Dmitri and I will draw them out. Mara, Jace, you flank us from above. Wait for our signal. I instilled my trust upon each of them, handing them the firepower I wished would serve as a message to all around us. Our battle was far from over. We lay low as we approached the entrance to the basin. A sense of foreboding danced in my stomach, but there was no turning back now. "On my mark," I whispered. We held our breath, exchanging brief glances, the weight of every choice spiraling through time. A 3-2-1. Dmitri threw himself forward, unleashing a barrage of gunfire aimed at the nearest cluster of Praetorian soldiers. The echoes of metal clashing against concrete ricocheted. I rallied behind him, my heart racing, adrenaline fueling the fight that coursed through us. The sound of gunfire filled the air with defiance, a clarion call for all those still hidden within the shadows. "Now," I shouted, pointing toward the flank where Mara and Jace lurked, their own weapons unleashing chaos from above. We had become a symphony of destruction, our movements synchronized, as much an art as a battle. With the Praetorian forces drawn toward us, confusion erupted in their ranks. It was only a brief window of time, but we seized it, rushing toward the entrance of the basin, the heart of the Praetorian stronghold. As we breached the heavy doors, the world fell quiet in that sacred space, a stark contrast to the battle raging outside. Sensors and screens flickered ominously, mechanisms that had once brought life to the city now choked with steel monstrosities. "Locate their main hub," I commanded, scanning the control room, praying for any glimmer of hope amidst the ruins. "Over here," shouted Jace, gesturing toward a console that sat amidst scattered debris. It appeared functional, though precariously so. "I think this is where they're directing their operations from." "Let's get it up and running," I said. "If we can take control of their systems, we can disrupt the reinforcements on the surface." As we rushed over, Mary and Dmitri planted themselves at the entrance, weapons ready. The strained sound of metal echoed as the battle raged outside, and the stakes felt higher than ever. I took a deep breath as Jace engaged the console, frantically tapping commands, fingers pounding against the machinery. "There's a network," he muttered, brow furrowed in concentration, "but it's heavily encrypted." "I can breach it, but I'll need time." "We don't have time," Dmitri shouted, stepping back to fire a volley toward the opening. "They're coming. We need to cover you. Just a few more seconds," Jace insisted, bending low over the console. As my heartbeat drummed in my chest, the impending threat settled over us. I tightened my grip around my rifle. "We'll hold them off. You just focus." Incoming, Mary called, and my resolve hardened. Each shot we fired igniting a space around us, breaths mingling with the chaos erupting at our backs.
I turned back to Jace. He was working tirelessly, the tension coursing through him, feeding into the precarious calm that had settled over the room. Suddenly, an alarm blared from the console, sending a shockwave of urgency through me. "What's that?" I demanded. "It's their backup protocol," Jace said through gritted teeth. "If we don't access the mainframe before it activates, they'll wipe everything, including our access. We can't let them re-establish command." Dread gripped me, but a flicker of relentless hope ignited amid my trepidation. "Keep at it, Jace. We won't let them shut you down. Mary, Dimitri, we keep our positions." With every ounce of strength and focus, we held the line against waves of encroaching Praetorians, their determination stark against our own burgeoning resolve. The air rattled with gunfire as we fought against the oppressive silence attempting to consume us. "We're almost there," Jace shouted suddenly. "Just a bit longer." My heart thundered, pushing back against the tide, the desperate dance of battle echoing around us. Each beat positioned the hope itself within reach. "Hold, hold," I yelled as the commander unit hove closer, its laser array aimed straight for Jace. With furious resolve, Mary shifted her aim, taking the first shot. "Take that thing down," she yelled, but the Praetorian laughed, a metallic snarl echoing over the din. "Stand down or be eliminated." Anger surged through me. "I choose neither." I spat back, focusing my energy on the unit. Adrenaline coursed, sending life surging through my veins like fire. "Celia, look out," Dimitri shouted as the commander unit aimed, but a defiant roar broke from my core. I surged forward, weapon drawn, channeling everything I held for those behind me. The world narrowed, every moment sharpened, every heartbeat resonated with purpose. With a push and pull of energy, I unleashed a series of shots, each safely piercing through the haze, causing the commander to falter as sparks danced within its jointed limbs. "Now, Jace," I yelled, but my eyes remained fixed on the advancing shadows. The Praetorian units hesitated, taking aim falteringly. "Breach complete," he shouted triumphantly. "I've accessed the mainframe. Shut it down," I hollered, pushing the momentum forward as the console fell into place. "Activating withdrawal," he said breathlessly, the screen flickering nervously above us. "Redirecting the power grid to overload." "Yes," I roared, feeling the tide turn in our favor. Yet the moment was fleeting as the energy began to surge. The command unit jerked violently. Sudden irritation replaced anger. "Systems compromised, engaging contingency protocol," it snarled, pulling back as the hollow eyes flared ominously. "No," I shouted out in despair upon realizing the truth would soon tumble before us. A phantom born from the shadows of desperation. "We need to get out." As the last sparks ignited, the atmosphere shifted. The unit fired back, unleashing a murderous wave of energy, sending Jace stumbling while simultaneously forcing the output into the chamber. "Go, we have to retreat," Dimitri shouted, lunging toward us. I took a final shot at the unit, but the display flickered dangerously bright, overwhelming me with sorrow amidst the destruction. "Get out," Mary yelled, dragging me back. Now, with every breath, heat burst forth, shock and agony rippling through my limbs. Instinct kicked in. There was no time for doubt. Jace had already regained his bearings, eyes aflame with determination. "We'll make it, we will." The overwhelming force surged. The fray of shadows enveloped us, swallowing everything into a deafening horizon. "Dimitri," I called, desperation echoing in my heart. I could barely breathe as he yelled back, his voice intertwined with the chaos. "It's gonna blow." Everything exploded in a blinding wave of light. A radiant eruption that shattered the dim echoes of the past, consuming everything within its reach. I couldn't think. I could only grip the moment as we surged toward the exit, desperate to escape the impending destruction. Then we were free. The light spilled forth into daylight and chaos. The concussive blast erupted behind us, sending a shockwave that propelled us forward. Together, we raced toward the crumbling streets, breathless, hearts pounding in anticipation of liberation. Just as we burst through the entrance, the explosion erupted in a cacophony behind us, enveloping the chamber in fiery chaos, obscuring the darkness of fear with flames of renewal. Together, I shouted as we stumbled into the open, tremors reverberating through the earth, collapsing pillars and dust swirling like a tempest beneath the weight of our fight. "Viselia," Dmitri shouted, pulling back just in time, and I nodded toward him. The flames circling the arena igniting an inferno behind us, searing away remnants of the shadows. It didn't have to be this way. I called back, heart blazing, determination mingling with sorrow. But amidst that chaotic eruption, freedom called to us, beckoning us forward and painting a landscape of promise beyond the ashes. We stumbled into the remnants of Central City, the sun breaking free, each flicker illuminating a new reviving spirit amidst the rubble. Together, hand in hand, we had forged a path through destruction and despair, and as we inhaled the freedom born from our anguish, we forged our way forward into the dawn of a new beginning. In that moment we knew the fight had not ended, but together we had shaped something unbreakable, the flame of resistance alive, ignited by our defiance tailored toward a glimmering hope that would guide our newfound future. "This is our city," I whispered, my voice entwined with the fierce determination of all of us, igniting the spirit of a revolution ready to arise from the shadows once and for all. We stepped forward bound together, illuminated by the promise of what lay ahead, and we were no longer haunted by the past. This was our chance, our voices now harmonized in a singular symphony. The dawn of a new world awaited us, and hand in hand we would rise,